Hi, everyone. Welcome to Writers of the Lost Ark. My name is Caitlin Cornell, and I will be your host. To introduce this podcast about screenwriting, I have to talk about my dad, who's not a screenwriter. He's a novelist and a short story writer. He's an essayist and a writing teacher. And I grew up with him writing and rewriting not just his work, but correcting other people's essays and other people's work. I've given him my screenplays to read in the past when I was really brave, and he'll read them and he'll give me feedback, but always with the caveat of, I'm not a screenwriter, but, and I usually get the best advice. When I was 14, I asked him to give me an assignment that he would give one of his college students. And I thought it was like really cool, you guys. Like, oh, I'm gonna get a college writing assignment. Ugh. And then he looked at me without blinking, and he just goes, write about dirt. And then my 14-year-old brain just went into a anxiety panic tizzy. Like, you can't be serious. Like, write what about dirt, Dad? Like, write what? I don't know. That's up to you. Write about dirt. Do it by Friday. I can't remember exactly what I wrote. I'm sure my mom has it somewhere, but I'm honestly kind of afraid to look at it again. But he said that it was interesting, and I was just so elated that he didn't cast me into outer darkness. And then he said that it was to show me that on a topic like dirt, he had never read the same perspective. And thinking back, that was probably the first time that I was a real writer. Like, if I could write about something as mundane as dirt and make it my own, I could learn to write about bigger things. I could learn the importance of sitting with a detail and being super uncomfortable. I could learn what questions dirt made me think of and try to answer them. I don't know if that's why he assigns this topic, and I could be reading into it, but 20 years later, and I'm still learning from it, and that's what I got from it, so thanks, Dad. But in a house full of books, I grew up watching movies, and I get that from my mom. I love movies. We used to go to the movies every Christmas. It was a huge deal. We used to watch movies every night before going to bed, and we have family movie night together. And being a theater kid, I loved watching these fantastical worlds come to life. It was just at the cusp of CG entering the film space. In the late 90s, early 2000s with the Star Wars prequel series and with Lord of the Rings. And I even went to theater school, and then I decided to become a filmmaker. But I'll never forget watching the extended edition DVDs of Lord of the Rings, almost to the point of burnt out. And then I read the book over a summer, and I was just like, holy hell, how did they make this a movie? Because the adaptation is totally wild and different and amazing, and it's an amazing feat of filmmaking, and it's an amazing feat of screenwriting. And that's when I started to, in my kid brain, just figure out the power of a screenwriter. And I started writing stories and really bad poetry that I thought was really good, and essays and plays and short films. And I tried to get to the part where I knew I was good and I could mount a production or later direct a movie. But I was always stuck, and I didn't make anything for a long time. And I still struggle with that. And by the way, I say stuck as opposed to writer's block because my other hero is Neil Gaiman. And he says that writer's block doesn't exist because it's not a disease that you have been smote with, or God doesn't put something in your path that suddenly makes it oh, I just can't write. And if you're stuck, then it's on you. And I'd rather be in control of my own failings the older that I get. But when I do get stuck, I call my dad. And he usually says what I need to hear that I'm too scared to tell myself. I once texted him when I was in a rough moment with I think it was my horror movie that I was writing, but I asked him if he ever considered his audience when you're writing. And the immediate reply was, never on the first draft. And then a couple months later, I texted him, do you have any advice on writing a story with mostly villains in it? Because I thought I was going to be a superhero writer. I still do. Less immediate response was, yes, you have to like all of them. And in a low moment, I texted him after a couple of other things, How do I improve my writing, Dad? And the really irritating 2-word answer, by reading. I was working at an experimental art show, contemporary art show, which I don't always know what to look at. That's more my brother's territory. My brother's a sculptor. And I asked my dad out of nowhere, because my brother wasn't there, like, how do I know if this is good or not? Like, how do I look at art like this? Because, I wasn't completely sure about some of these artists. I couldn't look them up on Wikipedia. And he just responds, I saw it on my break a little bit later in the day. See what pleases you. See what makes you uncomfortable. Ask why. And some of the gems that he's given his students in the past that have been touchstones for me have been things like, characters just want what they want. The danger of knowing where you're going is that you're in a hurry to get there. Don't go from one thing to another without purpose. And something must happen in every scene. And for not being a screenwriter, that sounds like good advice for screenwriters, because ultimately, good writing is good writing, no matter what the medium is. And even though screenwriting will become a visual medium, it's still a skill in and of itself. To him, writing is how we explain this world that we live in. It doesn't matter if it's Kafka or Dostoevsky or Chris Nolan or Steven Spielberg, if we go to Narnia or Middle Earth or a galaxy far, far away, if it's Iron Man's world or Picard's or Aragorn's, it's all in an effort to ask questions of this world we live in and questions about ourselves and what everything could mean. The writer's strike really made me question my place in writing, especially in writing for film, because AI was such a huge part of that conversation. And how could I even call myself a script writer when you could just write a prompt in and a script could be spat out for you? Like, what was the value of all the work that I was trying to put in to be more skilled? And I still wasn't where I wanted to be in my career. And I fortunately made this comment at a dinner, and halfway through some sort of spaghetti bolognese dish, my dad puts down his fork, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "You're still you, and an AI can't live your life." And then he added like a "who cares?" like just for good measure, because that's who my dad is. But the challenge of his statement was, do you still want to do it? And in a digital age, there can always be more voices added to the algorithm of how we see things. In a sense, with all the technology that makes our scripts like technically correct, the fight is now how to make it sound as authentic as possible with clarity and grace and tact. And that takes a lot of skill. Writing is an art form. The act of writing is solitary, but then in film, we have the opportunity to share it. And what we put to page inspires others in their own fields to create with whatever mediums they have, how it's lit, how it's acted, directed, captured. What do the spaceships look like, or the little flowers, or the towns, or the inhabitants? How do you show evil? How do you show struggle? Making this podcast is my journey to make sense of everything, to put all of my internal voices and questions and maybe answers and more questions and interests and likes and escapisms and make it my voice. To figure it all out with all of the things I love in movies, what kinds of movies that I want to make, what kind of writer do I want to be, what kind of person do I want to be, how do I want to love, how do I want to fight for what I believe in, and how do my characters do that? And if my characters think differently than me, how does that challenge me? Or how do I challenge them? We have the history of film on basically like every streaming service imaginable. We have like 40 to 50 years of history of world building on multiple franchises. Like 75% of film, and that's not an accurate number, is not original intellectual property. Can you write in someone else's voice? How do you put your own spin on a world that's already built? How do you add your voice to an already created world while maintaining its integrity? How do you know when you're going off the rails? How do you define the story? These are questions I ask every time I watch something, and in the hopes that I'm not alone in those questions, I created The Writers of the Lost Ark. And I want to use this format to ask the questions about the movies I love to make me a better writer. What worked in a movie, what didn't work in a movie, and how, even though we can't change the execution, and a lot of these films that we might have issues with do have execution problems, maybe if we just change something about the script, whether it be the structure or how we treat a character or what we do with an object, what we do with the character arcs, what might be missing, could that help the final product? I'm going to be going into some very niche topics, and it's just an exploration, but hopefully, like Dirt, something surprisingly interesting will happen. And maybe it will inspire more questions. We'll mostly be doing a deep dive into the big franchises this season, but I also hope to do some movie reviews and some short little factoids about movies that I find really interesting if I find something that I want to share. And some interviews with people that I want to learn from that might shed light on things that I haven't had the courage to ask yet. I remember I texted my dad about a year ago, and we were going to this little like back and forth chit chat conversation. And I innocuously said, "Oh God, how's the writing going?" I thought I was really cool. And he didn't make fun of me. He didn't laugh. I'm sure he laughed on the other end, but I'm not going to put that on him. But after a couple heart-wrenching beats of the ... the reply comes through, and it's still trying to learn how to do it. My dad's in his 80s, and he's been writing for most of his life. And I'm in my 30s, and I actually just in this moment am like painfully aware and excited that this journey is just beginning for me, even now. My dad is not a screenwriter, but most of the screenwriters that I know and that I look up to aren't just screenwriters. They're poets. They read novels and science magazines. They're parents and they're friends, and they're late to pick up their kid from soccer practice and they're just trying to get dinner on the table. They watch reality TV to unwind and go for hikes on the weekends. They pay their taxes. They're nerds and geeks and go to conventions and comic book stores and movie theaters and art galleries and history museums and wrestling shows, and they paint in their spare time. They make the world their sandbox. They get into trouble, and then they get back to their desk and they play and they take risks. So I hope you're still with me, my fellow traveler. So if you are, subscribe and comment any question that you're currently writing about. And if you don't have anything to write about, go write about Dirt. Whatever you want, just go write. And I'm serious, by the way, because writing about Dirt can change your life.